Unless you've been living under a rock, you have seen prices rising just about everywhere. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you why that's going to accelerate. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. How can prices accelerate when we're already up in the moon? Well, I'm telling you, we're going to go past the moon into Mars because things are getting real hot. Why, you ask? Well, I'm going to break that down today. We are going to look at the number one group that is responsible for what you have seen, for the prices at your grocery store, for the house prices, for the car prices, and everything else. How can one group be responsible for all of that in a global scenario? I'm talking about this in every country just about, and in every sector just about. How could this be? Well, this level of coordination is not an accident. This happens throughout a cycle. And right now, what we are seeing is simply part of that. You might be asking yourself, this is the time in which we should be at the forefront, understanding the latest information so that we can stay in tune with it, so that we are going to make the changes. And of course, that's why you are here. We've got to talk about those groups being the central banks. The central banks poised for rate cuts in 2024, investors and economists predict. And this is widely accepted that in 2024, there will be lots of rate cuts. We don't exactly know how many and when they'll start, but overwhelmingly, they do believe that rate cuts will come. What has happened up until this point has been a very serious problem. Okay, we've had these aggressive rate hikes, and that has become an issue. We've seen this particularly in the real estate market, commercial real estate primarily. And you have that burden on these landlords, on these businesses who have been relying on super low interest rates for so long. If you are reading articles, if you're talking about these economists out there, they only like to mention the fact that rates have been rising. But what happened before that? The central banks brought interest rates down to these super low levels for such a long period of time. After the financial crisis, they tried to, just for a little bit, increase interest rates. 2018 timeframe, depending on the country. Oh my goodness, that did not go over well. And then in 2020, they brought them down to zero. They started buying mortgage-backed securities. Why in the world would they buy mortgage-backed securities knowing that the real estate market was on fire? Why are you trying to support a market that has already gone to the moon? Well, of course, they wanted to bring it to Mars instead. And so that's an unfortunate circumstance. San Francisco, small business owners are calling for help. And basically what they're saying is, in this example, that you can't get a loan. So it's, or if you can get a loan, the terms are ridiculous, interest only and all that. And so many businesses have to close up shop simply because they can't afford the debt. You think that a business goes in with cash? That's not how it works. For the most part, businesses, small, medium, and large, are using debt to some degree. And when they do that at 0%, they're going to be borrowing at a very reasonable rate and they can make it happen. Your margins are there, right? If you're operating one type of business or another, that determines what your margin will be, how successful you are, all these things. But when interest rates are so high, that squeezes your margins down. And of course, we see that today. And so many of them are just saying, I'm done. I'm walking. And this is becoming an issue for the lenders. It's a different problem that we had during the housing crisis, but now primarily affecting commercial real estate. You see, when you look at the average person, believe it or not, does have a lot of equity in their homes. And that can keep them safe for a while. Think of it like a little bit of insulation in between the crisis and them. So that's okay if everything stays the way it is and going in this trajectory. But commercial real estate, it's a very different world because they don't hold onto their properties for that long. It's always short-term debt, okay? Very short-term debt. that is rolled over at this time. Higher interest rates are affecting them to a great degree, whereas the average real estate, residential real estate is on a very, right now at this time, a very low interest for a very long time. So they're not affected by that to as much of a problem, except when you look at it in like Canada, Australia, and other places where they're dealing with, those higher interest rates right away. It's also that short-term scenario. U.S. office buildings face a $117 billion debt time bomb. That's not my words. That's coming out of the article, okay? Mortgages due this year threaten to sink the U.S. economy as thousands of workplaces remain empty. And what did I say about the U.S. government? Many departments of the U.S. government, the occupancy rate in these buildings, 7%, 9%, 13%. Imagine that. They're all empty. Why are they even there? Why are they sucking up your tax dollars? Do you understand that? You should be enraged by this. Either bring them all into work or simply say, we're going to sell off this real estate. We're going to give that money back to the public, not just ruin it in the way that they do. Pick one of the two. You can sell that property, give them people their money back as it belongs to them. Or on the other hand, you got to bring everybody back to work. It's got to be one of those two. You can't just leave these properties with like 90% vacancy. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous to waste your tax dollars. $34 trillion in terms of the national debt. I mean, you got a problem and you can't get out of it now. Hundreds of loans on office buildings are about to come due at a very bad time. Loans were taken out at a time of low interest rates and now hard to refinance. Too many of the loans defaulting could trigger the banking crisis and hurt the economy. And what's important to note, people should realize that regional banks are still very much exposed to the troubles in commercial real estate. That's the one. That is the big one. The commercial mortgage-backed security market has done a good job of spreading out the risk, but that means there will be pain to go around. You see, a lot of companies are going to get hurt because there will be failures. It's going to be defaults. They're not going to be able to pay back. It's just a matter of time. How widespread that is, I'm not so sure. We've gone a year with very few failures, although we did have several big ones about a year ago. So where that goes from here, that remains to be seen, but certainly it is a problem because we do know, as it says right here, more big companies are set to collapse in 2024. This is not a surprise. You do this, you increase interest rates, you are going to weed out the bad actors. You are going to create a situation in which companies with very narrow margins who, maybe were running on all like venture capital money and were never making profit, those type of companies likely will suffer, especially during these times. SPAC companies accounted for at least 21 bankruptcies, but check this out. They had a $46 billion of lost investor value. 46 billion. Those poor investors were going in this phase, in this insanity of, hey, we'll just throw money into a SPAC. I heard it's cool. Let me throw some cash in there. Oops, it's gone. Okay, that's not good. We know that's not good because it shows us how crazy things got. Like, you can't do that. You need stability. You need a foundation. You need a real business plan. And you need to actually show that you're doing it. So many of these companies, they have an idea. They kind of do something, but there's no real long-term model. One of those, actually two of those companies, being Uber and Lyft, are entirely running on the idea that we are going to have autonomous drivers driving those vehicles at some point in the near future. How many years? The entire thing is like, no, we're not making any money now, but one day we're going to make a lot of money because we can fire those drivers. Okay. And this is just talking about the fact that the individual, you had excess savings, purchasing power that was released by the fact that people were staying home, especially white collar workers. And right now, the circumstance is that things have really tightened up. The savings have declined considerably, and people are, as Walmart CEOs, as being choiceful. And this means that you've got to pick your, create your choices, very, very mindfully. Watch out what you're doing, where you put your cash. Right now is not the time to go invest in the crazy ideas that you might have. Watch out. If we do move into a situation in which it's a shallow recession or no recession at all, and things are going well, they start cutting interest rates slowly and easily. Maybe the quantitative tightening stops there. No real bank failures to hear about. Just some smaller companies are failing. Then it gets time to invest into some more risk assets. But at this time, you got to balance that out. Watch the risk. If they go quantitative easing, they flip that and they do some sort of backdoor quantitative easing. I'll tell you on this channel when they do it. I told you in 2019 when they were doing it with the repo operations. I cover that here, and we know what happened with the market. It was so obvious what was going on. Of course, that was stimulus. That was quantitative easing. And then the market went up as a result. Of course, everybody on this channel at that time, September 17th, 2019, knew all about it on a daily basis. And so during this time, we are kind of in this wait and see moment, but it's looking bullish and bullish. And that's why I told you back in September of 2022 that I think this is a bottom in the market, at least temporarily. I'll address it at that time, and we move through, and hey, look at this. Pinpointed it. I'm trying to help everybody as best I can because I look at this through the data, through the lens of data itself, not through some other person's, view. And then I watch their videos. I don't watch any of those videos. I don't watch any newscaster. I don't watch any, I don't read any particular, author or anything like this. I get the raw data. If you want to get on the inside, then you've got to join my live classes. Okay. I actually fixed it up a little bit. I fixed up the text in here and I actually put the checkout page right there. So you click that one button, Stripe brings you in, and you could do that. I've got more people joining in. There's obviously not everybody can join. What is it? What am I talking about? Live classes. Friday, on Friday's session, I go through and I break down everything that's happening. So you get that information, like we were just talking about in this video, 2 hours worth on a Friday session. Sunday session is for people wanting to build an e-commerce business because maybe they're saying, I don't think where I'm living is maybe the right place, or maybe I want a plan B so that I can walk if I need to. That's the Sunday session, 2 hours as well. If you're interested, check the link in the description and I will break that down in those paragraphs there. And there's a checkout page if you would like. I want to thank you for being here. Hit that thumbs up button. And as always, join me here tomorrow for the latest and greatest.